Bulbasaur is easy mode, Squirtle is normal mode, and Charmander is hard mode. If you ever read any discourse on the first generation of Pokemon, you've probably seen people talk about it being an unplayable buggy mess, and also trashing Charmander. Sure, on paper it's true, Charmander does have a bad type matchup against the first two gyms, but in practice, it's a bit of a different story. Charmander benefits from some, shall we say, unique quirks of Gen 1, and has some valuable strengths that are often overlooked. We're going to dive into how Charmander performs in both a standard playthrough and a hardcore Nuzlocke of Red and Blue, address some common criticisms of the Pokemon, and explore why Gen 1 Charmander is actually kinda good. Let's start at the, start. If we look at Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander's beginning movesets, we can see Charmander has a different attack move than the other two. The difference between Scratch and Tackle is minor, but Scratch is objectively better since it has 5 more base power and, most importantly, 100 accuracy compared to Tackle's 95 accuracy. Scratch's perfect accuracy, well, almost perfect accuracy, Gen 1 is a great game. Scratch's almost perfect accuracy and higher damage allows a bit of a more consistent fight against your rival in the lab. I know it's common for Nuzlocke to not officially begin until you obtain your first Pokeballs, so losing here is allowed, but you do lose out on the experience and you head into the grass down a level compared to normal. And these Pokemon on Route 1 low-key have hands, man. Like, you can straight up just get wrecked by a lucky crit from a Rattata if you miss too many tackles. Speaking of crits, I should mention that in Generation 1, speed affects critical chance. The faster a Pokemon is, the more they crit. The Charmander line is the fastest of the starters, so it'll crit roughly 4% more often than the Squirtle and Bulbasaur lines, which is pretty good early but ends up mattering a bit less than you think. Hell, it actually can be a detriment for Charizard, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so Charmander has the strongest starting moveset of all 3 starters. But what about the first move that they all learn? At level 9, Charmander learns Ember, which is 40 base power and has 25 PP. At level 8, Squirtle learns Bubble, which has just 20 base power and 30 PP. At level 7, Bulbasaur learns Leech Seed, which is a status move and does no actual direct damage. Bulbasaur will have to wait until level 14 to learn its next attacking move, Vine Whip, which is only 35 base power and has a measly 10 PP. Charmander does have to wait the longest for its stab move, but level 9 is pretty obtainable just from battling whatever wild Pokemon you encounter while playing normally. Here my Charmander hit level 9 fighting the first trainer in Viridian Forest and proceeded to torch everything with the super effective Ember. Squirtle is fine even with the weaker Bubble, but is obviously slower, and Bulbasaur, well, slow and steady wins the race. When I was testing the starters, I literally had to run from a Caterpie because Bulbasaur ran out of PP for Tackle. After Viridian Forest, we head right into Brock's gym. The optional trainer here is actually way harder than Brock and is sort of dicey for all 3 starters, unless Bulbasaur made it all the way to level 13 in Viridian Forest and learned Vine Whip. This guy's Diglett is super fast and is prone to scoring a lot of critical hits, and Sandshrew can just cheese you out with Sand Attack. You'd think Squirtle would be the best against this guy since water's super effective against ground, but the base power on Bubble is just so low that it's a 3-hit kill on Diglett and Sandshrew, same as Charmander's Ember. This brings us to the first pain point for Charmander, Brock. Like I said earlier, Charmander is weak on paper here, but in practice, it's a little bit of a different story. In Gen 1, Brock's Pokemon don't have any rock attacks at all. Geodude has just Tackle and Defense Curl, and Onix has Tackle, Bide, and Screech. Fun fact, other than the Cerulean City rival battle, Charmander does not face a super effective attack until Misty's gym. Not even the guy on Route 23 with the Slowpoke has a water attack. As for Charmander's offense, Geodude and Onix both resist Scratch and Ember. However, they have among the lowest special stats in the game, allowing Ember to still deal solid damage and chunk them down. With a bit of luck, Charmander can actually solo this fight, even at the hardcore Nuzlocke level cap of 14. There's a chance both Brock's Pokemon will just spam Tackle and ruin your day unless you luck out on misses or Ember crits. Generally though, Geodude will waste turns using Defense Curl and Onix will use Bide, which you can just stall out while using Growl. At the level cap of 14, it is possible for Onix to outspeed Charmander if it has really bad IVs. Here you kind of have to just pray you luck out on when Onix uses Bide or sacrifice another Pokemon to take a charged up Bide. However, if you actually use your other Pokemon from the first few routes, this fight does become a lot easier. Spearow, Pikachu, or Nidoran female can growl Brock's Pokemon instead of Charmander in order to preserve its health. Pidgey can just Sand Attack cheese either of the Pokemon. Weedle and Caterpie can String Shot Onix, ensuring Charmander outspeeds and avoids the Bide. Even in a Nuzlocke, you're guaranteed to at least pull somebody useful to assist Charmander if you don't want to risk Charmander doing it all alone. The only scenario Charmander has no assistance is if you skip the Route 1 encounter due to having no Pokeballs, then pull Nidoran male on Route 22, Rattata on Route 2, and then like a Kakuna or a Metapod in Viridian Forest. Keep in mind that Nidoran does not have Double Kick early in Red and Blue, and Mankey isn't available. Those were changes in Yellow version. Obviously, Squirtle and Bulbasaur just destroy Brock with like zero effort. I just wanted to highlight that Brock isn't this impossible wall, he's just a little annoying. Moving on to Route 3, this is where the choice of Charmander truly shines. You'll still be a couple levels away from evolving or obtaining Water Gun for Squirtle, so Charmander's increased base damage allows you to cut through the trainers with ease, especially the bug catchers. After obtaining Water Gun and evolving, Wartortle catches up and both Wartortle and Charmeleon will both clean house. Meanwhile, Ivysaur is still taking it slow and steady since all of the bugs and flying types resist Vine Whip. Keep in mind Vine Whip does incredibly low PP, so you'll most likely have to run back to the Poké Center repeatedly. None of this is difficult for Ivysaur, mind you, it's just very slow. In Mount Moon, there's only a single trainer with rock Pokemon. Fortunately, Game Freak provided the TM for Water Gun, which you'll just slap onto your Rattata, Nidorino, Jigglypuff, or Clefairy. Well, we can ignore Clefairy. I know you got a Zubat in Mount Moon, don't lie. If you don't have any of those Pokemon, Charmeleon still handles rock types easily because of their bad special. You can also pick up the Mega Punch TM, which Charmeleon and Wartortle can learn, but not Ivysaur. Mega Punch is 80 base power and has 85 accuracy. You can skip it or just try not to think about accuracy and let them go to town. Here, I want to talk about some of the random trainer battles you face throughout the game. The vast majority of them are going to be a joke, but some of them, especially the guys who carry a single high-level Pokemon, are actually pretty challenging. While all these trainers I'm about to talk about are skippable, that requires previous knowledge that these specific trainers are tough, and not everyone is going to have that knowledge or want to look up documentation. There's 4 in the early game I really want to cover. The guy on Route 3 with the level 14 Spearow, the infamous Mount Moon Rocketgron with the level 16 Raticate, the previously mentioned guy with the Slowpoke north of Cerulean, and a bug catcher near Vermilion City with a level 20 Butterfree. The Spearow has Peck, while the Slowpoke and Butterfree both have Confusion, making these guys tougher if you pick Bulbasaur. Charmander has the edge over the other 2 starters thanks to its higher offensive power, allowing you to take down these threats as fast as possible. Squirtle is no slouch though and isn't far behind Charmander in the damage department and is arguably better since it has higher defense. Bulbasaur players probably want to pass up on most of these guys though. There's not much of a reason to cover the rest of Mount Moon or routes 23 and 24 in depth, so let's skip ahead to Misty. Here, yeah, Charmeleon is kind of awful, there's not really getting any around that. Fortunately, in a Nuzlocke, you can guarantee a Bellsprout or an Oddish encounter thanks to the Dupes clause, and because they appear in 4 different routes. Gyarados is also a guaranteed option from the Route 3 Poké Center and Rex Starmie. Beedrill might be an option since it learns Twin Needle at level 20, which is super effective on Starmie, but I never tested it and Starmie is absolutely cracked, so it might just win anyway. If you need to grind up your Starmie killer, you can just head to Vermilion City, do the SSN, and battle the trainers on routes 6 and 11 before actually battling Misty. No matter when you decide to handle Misty, you'll eventually have to fight the Rocket Grunt behind the house who gives you the TM for Dig. Dig is insane in Gen 1, sporting 100 base power and 100 accuracy, same as Earthquake. The only difference is Dig is 2 turns instead of 1. Giving the player a move this strong before the second badge is absurd, but Gen 1 kinda likes doing that with TMs. Good candidates to teach this at this stage of the game are Arbok, Raticate, Sandslash, Mankey, Graveler, Wartortle, or Charmeleon. Sandslash is probably the best recipient, but it is a version exclusive and you might just not pull it in Blue Nuzlocke. I'm a big fan of slapping it onto Charmeleon. Charizard ends up being the 3rd fastest Dig user in the game, right behind Dugtrio who learns Dig naturally, and Alakazam who... Wait, why can he learn Dig? Is it the spoons?
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
Charizard also has access to another strong TM that synergizes really well later. Ivysaur cannot learn Dig, but that doesn't really matter too much since on the SSN you can find the TM for the best move in the game, Body Slam. Body Slam is 85 base power, 100% accuracy, and a 33% chance to paralyze. Almost every Pokemon in the game can learn this, but Ivysaur sort of needs it since it's stuck with Vine Whip until level 30, and has no other options for TM moves this early. Giving Dig to Charmeleon could free up the Body Slam TM for another strong Pokemon like Nidoking, Farfetch'd, or Gyarados. If you opt to give Dig to another Pokemon, Body Slam might be a good idea for Charmeleon, and if you don't give him either, there's Mega Punch as a fallback. Squirtle is really blessed in this situation since it has access to Mega Punch, who's not really contested, and can just use the Bubble Beam TM from Misty for a strong stab move. Now you skip using both Dig or Body Slam on your starter. Honestly, Squirtle really is the best starter, let's give him his flowers. Speaking of Dig, Charmeleon can sweep Surge while spamming Dig, but a critical Thunderbolt from Raichu can one-shot Charmeleon, so it's still probably best to grab the free Diglett from Diglett Cave. Skipping ahead to Lavender Town, let's talk about the other major implication of your starter choice, Blue's team. The battle on Pokemon Tower is the first point where Blue's team begins diverging based on your starter. Blue will always have a Fire type, a Water type, and a Grass type on his team, with his starter being one, and Gyarados, Arcanine, or Executor filling in the other spots. If we pick Charmander, Gyarados is off the table for blue, which is huge because for some reason in Pokemon Tower, blue's level 22 Gyarados has Hydro Pump and Dragon Rage. That is a 120 base power move, plus stab, plus Gyarados' 100 special stat in Gen 1. Insane choice from Game Freak to do this, honestly. This feels like something you would find at a ROM hack. Blue's Growlithe and Execute both suck in comparison. Growlithe has no moves and doesn't evolve into Arcanine until the champion fight. Seriously, even the fight before the Elite Four, it's a Growlithe just spamming Ember. My man must be banned from the Celadon department store. Execute is not much better. It usually doesn't even have an attack move and won't evolve until the champion battle either, where it's said is a total joke. Blue's Gyarados is the second scariest Pokemon, so removing it from the game is a major win for Charmander. Around this point in the game is an interesting point for Charmeleon. His power against grass kind of begins to fall off. Ember just doesn't do enough damage to kill grass types quickly. You're open to getting status and wrapped to death by Bellsprouts or status by Oddishes. I genuinely think in a hardcore Nuzlocke with level caps, Charmeleon kinda sucks against Erica because of this. Ember is a 4 to 5 hit KO on Victory Bell. However, in a normal playthrough, there's enough experience to have Charizard by this fight and he can just overpower Erica through sheer stats. In a Nuzlocke, Charmeleon is still a monster in normal trainer battles though, since you just wreck so many of the poison types in Gen 1 with Dig. Ivysaur catches back up to the other two starters at level 30 once it learns Razor Leaf, which is 55 base power, has stab, and most importantly, is a guaranteed crit in Gen 1. I don't know the specifics of the formula, but since crit is calculated with speed, all of the moves with increased critical chance are pretty much 100% guaranteed crits. I'm gonna level with you guys. I know so far in this video it sounded like I'm really coming at Bulbasaur as a starter, trying to paint that he's bad and everything. I do think he has some downsides, but Razor Leaf is legitimately so overpowered that nothing else matters and Venusaur is still an S-tier Pokemon. Seriously, people overcomplicate using Venusaur. They say he's good because of Sleep Powder, but he doesn't learn it until level 55. People say he's good because of the Toxic Leech Seed glitch where Leech Seed heals based on the ramping Toxic counter, but that just takes way too long, assuming they both even hit. Seriously, just click Razor Leaf. It's that insane. It'll 2 or 3 shot every Pokemon in the game. Charmeleon learns Slash at level 33, which is also a guaranteed crit at 70 base power. With stab and stats factored in, Charizard's Slash is quite a bit weaker than Venusaur's Razor Leaf, but it's still good enough to 2 or 3 shot everything that doesn't resist normal. It just hits worse damage thresholds than Razor Leaf. Having Slash and Dig in Charizard's kit complement each other perfectly. The only Pokemon that resist Slash are the Rock Pokemon and the Ghost Pokemon, who all take super effective damage from Dig. The notable exception is Lance's Aerodactyl, but just don't use Charizard for one guy, man. Silph Co is where Charizard really comes online once you find the Earthquake TM and the Swords Dance TM. If we look at the Pokemon who can learn Swords Dance, Charizard is the second fastest one, right behind Scyther, who learns Swords Dance naturally and is pretty unlikely to encounter in a Nuzlocke anyway. Or in general, dude, I swear the Savari Zone is impossible, man. Venusaur can also learn Swords Dance, but Venusaur is slower and does not learn Earthquake. Now, this is probably a good time to talk about a major glitch in Gen 1, the Badge Boost glitch. Badge Boosts are a mechanic where certain badges will increase your Pokemon stats by 12.5%. These boosts are glitched, however, and whenever your Pokemon stats are changed through a stat drop move like Growl or a stat boosting move like Swords Dance, these boosts are applied again, and again, and again. It is important to note that if your Pokemon levels up mid-battle, these glitch boosts are reset. We can abuse this heavily with Charizard, who is one of the faster Pokemon in the game. After we obtain the Soul Badge, which grants a badge boost for speed, Charizard can Swords Dance his way into one-shotting territory and most importantly, outspeed the actual best Pokemon in the game, Alakazam. If you want to get real crazy, you can obtain the Hyper Beam TM from the Celadon City Game Corner and slap that on Charizard. Gen 1 Hyper Beam has a fun little quirk where it kills a Pokemon. You won't have to spend a turn recharging, meaning you could just let the Hyper Beams rip. Since Hyper Beam is a normal move, its damage is physical, which means that if you combine Charizard's excellent speed, some Swords Dances, and Hyper Beam not requiring a recharge turn, Charizard can just nuke his way through the rest of the game unimpeded. Well, almost unimpeded. Remember earlier when I mentioned crits can sometimes be bad? Well, for some reason in Gen 1, critical hits will ignore your stat boost. So if Charizard Swords Dances 3 times and hits a critical Hyper Beam, it will ignore all 3 Swords Dance boosts and just deal damage normally. This can cause situations where a Pokemon survives a critical Hyper Beam and then you're stuck recharging and in danger. Also, Hyper Beam can just miss too. This is the ultimate crash out build. It's like Charizard's wife has left him and took the kids after he spent their life savings on cryptocurrency and he has nothing left to lose. Speaking from personal experience, I can't recommend this strategy for a Nuzlocke, but it provides so much dopamine. Anyway, the combination of Swords Dance and either Dig or Earthquake lets Charizard trash Koga Charizard can outspeed and one-shot Sabrina's Kadabra, set up Swords Dance on Mr. Mime, and then cleave through her Venomoth and Alakazam. Sabrina especially is a fight where Charizard shines compared to the other starters. Blastoise is much slower than Sabrina's Pokemon, and Venusaur is weak to Psychic while being slower. The final two gym leaders are a similar story. Blaine's lead Growlithe sucks, so you can just set up for free and spam Dig or Earthquake to victory. Giovanni's Rhyhorn and Rhydon have no rock attacks, so you can just once again dance and Earthquake all the way through. Venusaur can employ a similar Swords Dancing strategy, but because Charizard has access to Earthquake and Dig and Venusaur does not, and also is a little bit faster, I do think Charizard ends up handling Koga, Blaine, Giovanni, and Sabrina better than Venusaur does. Hell, even the rival battles in Silphco and Route 22 are easy for Charizard. Blue's lead Pidgeot doesn't do a whole lot, so you could just dance and then sweep. Just don't crit Blastoise or you're toast. This leaves us with the Elite Four. Lorelei is interesting because if you look at her team's moves, you might think Charizard can do well since her Dugong and Cloyster don't have water moves. Unfortunately, Fire does not resist Ice in Gen 1, so Ice is super effective against Charizard since it's part flying. This is actually the first time you'll run into a trainer with an Ice move outside of a few swimmers before Cinnabar, so it isn't the biggest deal ever, but it is a knock against Charizard. I also don't think there's a better place to talk about it, so I'm just gonna bring it up now. Charizard doesn't have a stab flying move. In the grand scheme of things though, it doesn't matter. Fire, normal, or ground will handle anything flying would be good against. Charizard can't do anything to Lorelei, but against Birdo, he can set up 3 Swords Dances in the face of Onix and sweep. Onix does have the 4x super effective Rock Throw, but it's super inaccurate, and it's like, it's an Onix, man. He doesn't do anything. Agatha has all poison types, so Charizard can sweep her too. He may require a Swords Dance to outspeed her final Gengar though, depending on what level cap you chose and his EVs and IVs. Lance is another major fight Charizard is hard countered by, but hey, what can you do? Fortunately, Zay has a quirk where he wants to use a super effective move always, even if it doesn't deal damage. This causes Lance's bad dragons to use only agility or barrier against poison types, and never actually attack. Charizard can sweep blue in the end since Pidgeot doesn't do anything really and you can Swords Dance and sweep. Crit Earthquake on Blastoise won't kill, so you could lose Charizard there, but it's like the last Pokemon in the game. That's literally fine. So pretty good Pokemon, right? Well, I definitely think Charizard is clearly the worst starter in Gen 1, like it's not really up for debate. But I'd put him in A tier for sure compared to Blastoise and Venusaur belonging in S tier. The main criticism is that Charmander is bad at the hardest part of the game, the early game. But I don't see how the early game is the hardest part of Gen 1 when Brock has no moves and Misty has a hard counter right next to her gym. We don't knock Squirtle starts for having to pick up the guaranteed Diglett for Surge, so why should Charmander get knocked for relying on Oddish and Bellsprout? If I had to label any section as the hardest in the game, I'd say it's Silphco building and Sabrina. Blue's toughest Pokemon are fully online by then, and Sabrina has the ever-thriving Alakazam. Gen 1 gets a bad rap for being a primitive buggy mess, but I think it actually still holds up pretty well. It's like that episode of Simpsons where Mr. Burns has every disease in perfect harmony keeping himself alive. None of the bugs hurt the gameplay experience. Well, almost done. I highly recommend challenging your preconceived notions and give both Gen 1 and Charizard a shot. Maybe you'll find beauty in the mess or just witness a mess. If you found beauty in this mess of a video, leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. I have more Pokemon content in the tank coming, so stay tuned. Later.